Hello everybody, today I wanted to compile a bunch of the beginner mistakes or things that I've seen around the community, misconceptions, things that you want to avoid so that you don't lose out when it comes to playing Wuthering Waves. Without further ado, let's get into it. This chatter says, why spend your Waveplates on EXP when you can farm Tacet fields? Why not max your echoes out now? Now, to be clear, this is kind of a misconception that a lot of people are seeing, because right now the trap is that you want to upgrade your echoes, you get something like a legendary echo, you get something like a 5-star or a legendary echo now, it has the perfect subset, it's exactly what you want, and suddenly you run out of resources to upgrade it. Well, if you take a look at Tacets, or if you've already unlocked Tacets, you see that some of the rewards that you can get specifically from these activities include things like echoes or the echo material EXP themselves. But stop. Although you definitely do need EXP in some cases, there are plenty of locations around the map, including things like overworld challenges, treasure chests, bosses, etc., that do give you EXP. And in some cases, when you're tracking mobs to farm and kill for the first time so that you try to get their echo EXP, some of these monsters also come alongside a challenge that also just drop you the echo EXP if that's what you're looking for when it comes to Tacet fields. Now, alternatively, you may have seen something that is rewardable through the Tower of Adversity being a selectable echo, in the sense that you can choose a specific echo, and there's a number of them that you can pick from, and it is quite rewarding. However, if you take a look at this, you may also be baited into thinking that a morphable rejuvenating glow, in a similar sort of sense, would be nice because look, you get to select a specific random echo of the following effects. However, when you zoom out for a sec, although you do see things like premium tuners, the premium sealed tubes, and even the union EXP, there are a lot of other priorities, especially when it costs 60 wave plates in order to actually do this activity. Now, to be clear, the intent behind wanting to max out echoes is fine. I understand you want more stats so you do more damage. However, to go out of your way to spend your wave plates specifically on an activity to get echo EXP is quite wasteful. Now, if you didn't see, I did have a video talking about how you can actually get some of these golden echoes early, even before you get to databank level 15. And because of that, if you're looking for the perfect echo, you could in theory just hop between worlds, gain 55 databank EXP every time that you collect one of these echoes. And in that sense, if you're trying to get a high level echo, you don't even need the Tacet fields as an excuse for you to farm echoes. And on the topic of EXP, and if the only thing you're considering then is whether the echo EXP that you get specifically from Tacet fields is worth early on, the answer is no. Currently, as you can see, I have a number of characters that have been leveled. However, upgrading and awakening a lot of these characters is really difficult. You don't get things like the Ascension material without spending stamina at the start of the game. And because of that, if you want to unlock things like your Gift of Nature, which is the increase in attack that Verena gives to her entire team and is extremely important, well, you'll have to cough up not only these materials here that you have to farm in the Forgery, aka one of the character Ascension material sites. And that isn't even talking about the fact that if you want to send them, you also need a lot of these materials that you're seeing right here. Now, while this person is definitely not making a mistake in wanting to level up their echoes, how you choose to max your echoes is really important, especially if you're trying to min-max your experience when it comes to early Wuthering Waves. And on that note, let's talk about resources and how realistic or unrealistic it is to be able to upgrade and play with a lot of the characters when it comes to Wuthering Waves. Now, this question is great. Can you even max out a character right now is something that a lot of people are probably questioning, because you have things like your union level to consider, you have things like your echoes to consider. You already saw that last comment that kind of sparked confusion about where or how you should be spending your stamina. So let's break it down. Where do your resources go at the start of the game? Okay, so just to break down the kind of things that I've got on my account right now, I have been pulling on things like the Raid Up banner, the Covenant banner, because I wanted Calcharo and I was trying to get some of the different weapons. That being said, I do have a decent spread of resources and things like ores, materials, etc. when it comes to playing the game. And of course, although this looks like a bunch of junk, you may be wondering, what do I find myself needing to farm the most? And right now, although you may think it's something like the Echo EXP, something that I've actually struggled with a lot is that when I've been trying to clear my Tower of Adversity, I'm actually missing another DPS. And so there are two ways for you to interpret this, but let's actually break down what this means and why I think that spreading resources thin is actually quite bad. Because of the fact that most of the overworld things are pretty easy to clear, my sights are set right now on trying to clear any of the weekly activities, and that includes things like the Simulated Universe or the Elusive Realm, and the Tower of Adversity or the Abyss. So although I do have a Gion right now who's been doing quite well for me, and I kind of just luckily got some arrow pieces that rolled out really well, which I'll show you later, I did find myself needing to also upgrade Danjin. However, at the moment, I don't have that many good echoes on her, and she's really not comparable at this point to even my Danjin, who again has way more stats. Now, again, to be clear, the overall sentiment and the tip that I'm providing and the tip that I'm suggesting right now is not to spread your resources thin. But when I say that, I don't mean that you shouldn't use your resources across different characters. It's just to be more efficient and smart about the way that you're doing it. At the start of the game, you may find yourself wanting to upgrade things like ranged characters to play a little bit more safe, and then you may find yourself needing to upgrade into other characters, or maybe you like them because you like their playstyle. However, although I do understand that feeling and sentiment, you will actually find yourself drained for stamina and resources quickly when you actually try to clear the abyss, when you actually try to clear the Tower of Adversity. Now again, you will have to spread your resources thin, which is kind of contradictory to what I'm saying, but the actual thing that you need to focus on right now is making sure that your DPS are doing enough damage to actually clear the adversity floors. Even for me right now, although I do have a level 40 support, which is a bit of investment, but not enough to say bankrupt my economy, I do actually feel that I would have wanted to ascend my Verena here and unlock her additional skill here that gives her 20% attack to the entire team. However, on that same vein, I've noticed that I'm not able to clear one of the sides with Danjin because she doesn't have enough damage, and that's simply because I've spread myself a little bit thin from having upgraded Rover a little bit as one of my first DPSs, and then also trying to invest a little bit into Calcharo, who I ended up getting from the Novice Select. Now, if I wanted to be more efficient, and something that I'm suggesting to you guys, is that ultimately focusing on two main DPS that you want to play, especially early on, is that how you will avoid not being able to clear one side. And although you definitely will have to spend a lot of time clearing and doing echo clears and doing echo farming in order to even upgrade or make some of these characters viable, as it stands right now, if you end up ascending too many characters, or if you find that you end up upgrading or investing too much into supports, although you may get certain things like increases to energy regen, or you may get things like increases to, or you may get things like special effects, keep in mind that none of these will matter if your DPS aren't able to actually beat the tower itself. Personally, I don't consider something like 1100 attack and 209 crit damage exceptionally weak, especially because, again, she is Danjin. She does have a couple of sequences in her. She's S3 right now. She isn't actually able to beat up one of the sides, and that's a big problem for me. So if you are curious about whether or not resource thinning is a thing in this game, it is. Be careful, and again, like I mentioned previously, try to invest in your DPSs early, although I do understand this may be contradictory because a lot of these characters will get power crept later. Special note, I do understand that upgrading a character like Danjin may not be super foolproof for the future, so if you want to upgrade a character like Rover, or if you want to keep a character like Jian upgraded, you don't have to fear the immediate power creeping of these characters, because ultimately it's going to be a little while before we get new characters, and if you even want a chance to be able to clear the abyss, you are going to have to invest in a DPS. So although your fear of power creeping and FOMO and things of this nature may be happening to you right now, between the beginner banner and the selector and the novice selector banner that we have, pick the DPSs or pick the characters you want to invest in. Just remember that if they are DPS, you will need them fairly upgraded to max so that you can clear the Tower of Abyss and claim your weekly rewards and astrites. And aha, these 4-star weapons suck. Just pull the 5-star weapon, lol. Now, while this is definitely somewhat of a troll comment, there's some truth to this. There aren't honestly a lot of 4-star weapons in the game that feel that good. And although there are weapons like the Command of Conviction, aka the 4-star free sword that we received in the Ranger series box, there aren't that many feels good 4-star weapons when you compare them to something like the 4-star gacha weapon, or of course the 5-star selected weapon. So what's the solution? What are you to do? And of course, the answer is not to pull 5 stars, but to be more efficient and more strategic with the use of your weapon. As it is right now, I've seen a lot of people kind of just slap on whatever 4-star weapon that they have and just kind of call it a day, or sometimes even upgrade to 3 or 2-star just because they want the additional stats. And that is definitely crazy, because in the age of gacha gaming 2024, you would imagine with how many Hoyoverse or gacha Genshin leading-esque games are out there nowadays, that this would be something that we've all learned to kind of like not getting scammed in a game like RuneScape. But let's break down the various weapons, or how you should be treating or assessing weapons currently when it comes to Wuthering Waves. So thank you again to I Am Rivenous for providing the sheet, but in case you were wondering, there are a couple calculations floating around right now, and also the boys at Pridewind have been doing great work in terms of calculation and seeing just from the technical standpoint which weapons are good, which weapons are bad. And of course, while spreadsheets and numbers are very helpful, keep in mind that the way that a lot of these weapons function also kind of paint a picture in the kind of playstyle or how viable the weapon will be depending on the character. Now, as you can see on the table behind you, one of the best swords in the game right now is the 4-star selector Ranger series Commando of Conviction Blade, at R1. Now, depending on which character you're looking at here, you have something like Danjin gaining decent value at 15.3k DPS compared to her other stats that are much lower. And even when you look at this weapon on someone like Rover, the Commando of Conviction kind of blows out everything outside of the gacha pullable weapon by like a fair margin, and that's kind of significant. Now, to be fair, the 4-star selected sword that you could get from the Ranger series box is quite strong and even better than the battle pass in some situations. You actually see that in both cases here. The battle pass weapon is actually much if not better than anything you could potentially compare to, and let's take a look into why. If you take a look at the description for the Autumn Trace in this case, you see that it increases attack by 4% upon dealing basic attack damage or heavy attack damage stacking up to 5 times. It lasts for 7 seconds, and it can be triggered 1 time every 1 second, which effectively means that you get something like a 20% damage increase so long as you're doing something like basic or heavy attacks. And although that doesn't sound like the most insane amount of damage, when you compare it to what the other weapons available currently are, it kind of paints a picture as to why that weapon specifically is so much better compared to the others. The runner-up for the broad blade category outside of the 5 stars or the battle pass weapon is a weapon called the Helios Cleaver, and as it is right now, it reads that within 12 seconds after a resonant skill, aka your E skill, is released, it increases attack by 3% every 2 seconds, stacking up to 4 times, and when the number of stacks reaches 12, all the stacks will be reset within 1 second. In layman terms, big attack increase over a period of time. But then you compare it to something like the Dauntless Evernight, which is actually one of the weapons that you could have picked as well from the 4-star selector, and it reads that after you use your intro skill, you get an 8% increase to your attack and a 15% increase to your defense, lasting for 15 seconds. Now, on a character like Tacet, or in a game where you could tank and be a bit more tanky, this Dauntless Evernight weapon might be pretty good in some situations. However, with the state of Wuthering Waves currently, a lot of people are striking above their means and are fighting mobs that are much higher than they are. And in that case, this defense pretty much means nothing, and more than anything else is about a 12% decrease in attack and is about a 12% attack decrease loss in terms of value. So there would be no reason for you to use this, but unfortunately this is one of the only other weapons that you could have gotten or selected for free within the game. As a side note, you do actually gain access to this weapon if you go to the Sea of Flames and go to the top of a little building where it's kind of stuck into the ground. If you find it, it is kind of cool if you do want to end up using someone like Tacet because you want to play a bit tankier in some cases with her. And for other weapons, there are stipulations like you have to be above a certain amount of health, or you only increase the damage of basic and heavy attacks by 12%, and it's also a 3-star, which feels a little bit weird because you're missing out on stats. It's very yucky specifically for broad blades. But the point of this section, and the point that I'm trying to convey here, is that when you are choosing a weapon and you are upgrading a weapon in Wuthering Waves, keep in mind that the weapon that you're choosing needs to synergize, and you can't really just willy-nilly upgrade a weapon because there are not many good options, especially if you're free to play. And outside of choosing something like the 4-star Ranger weapon, as I mentioned previously for the swords, you need to be very careful in how you invest. And in some cases, it might even be better for you to upgrade a 3-star and not waste the resources or ascension materials that you would need to ascend a 4-star weapon to then eventually throw it out anyways in the future. To tie things back to the tip that I mentioned before, a lot of the game right now comes down to resource management and what kind of playstyle you are appealing to. However, as it stands right now, I think that upgrading some 3-stars may actually be better than upgrading 4, especially if you're waiting for a new weapon to come out, if you're waiting for your selector, or if you're trying to find out what character you're going to pick, especially because the 4-star options are actually not that good. And again, although this comment is kind of a meme because like, haha, these 4-star weapons suck, just pull the 5-star weapon, there is some truth to this memery. 3-stars might actually sometimes be better, especially when it comes to your weapon EXP. And now the final thing that I want to talk about, which is somewhat of a meme, but actually something that a lot of people are abiding by when it comes to them developing their team compositions, is this mantra of, I don't need a healer, just dodge. Well, good player of Wuthering Waves, if you are so good that you don't take any damage, then by all means, you might as well just run one character, take as many damage increases as you can, and play Danjin because, that's the end of the video. You don't need to care about taking any damage whatsoever because ultimately, if you could dodge, why even need the heal? Why even need the sustain? Verena must be F tier, right? Wrong. And although some people may tell you, and although some people may point out, oh, skill issue, this is not realistic, Danjin is the best in the game so long as you don't get hit, the honest truth is that as someone that has basically invested a bunch of their time into trying to play Danjin, and I didn't have Gion until like literally yesterday, a lot of issues with the sentiment towards never dodging become especially highlighted or illustrated once you actually play a game, encounter any realistic scenario that is otherwise memed on. Dodging over and over when you aren't 100% aware of what's going on or even slightly distracted, well, in Danjon's case, you're just dead. Trying to farm out something like echoes while you're at 1 HP, or suddenly a mob or something hits you from behind, you're instantly dead. Now, while you could definitely say, oh, well, I wouldn't have gotten hit by that, or nah, I'd win, the honest truth is that a majority of this game is actually spent farming or kind of grinding in a kind of calm and peaceful sense. So to say that you don't need a healer, or you don't want to use someone like Verena or have a healer on your team so that you can keep yourself above a certain threshold so that you aren't hit in the back or have to respawn at a random location right before you were about to claim an echo, is kind of justified. Now, if you take a look at the map as well, you may also notice that although there are a lot of locations to teleport to, there are certain spots in the map where it is kind of a pain to walk to, or it doesn't feel like there are that many teleport locations available. And in that sense, if you have to keep reviving, if you keep dying, the whole process of, number one, having to load back through a cutscene, which can sometimes take you a long time, into then having to teleport to another location, which is another cutscene. And then finally, if you've arrived at your location, you still have to walk back to where your grave is, or wherever you dropped, or wherever the last thing you fought is. And assuming you haven't beaten the monster anyways, you're going to spend additional time and additional hassle in dying, or praying that you're dying, or being really low HP, or having to heal up at one of these resonance nexuses to be ready for whatever encounters or echoes that you're going to be farming in the future, which in my opinion is extremely annoying and kind of ruins the fun in farming in 99.99% of cases. Now, I know a lot of you guys will scream skill issue and, oh, just get better, don't get hit. But the honest truth is that a lot of people right now, I'm sure, are grinding Wuthering Waves to their absolute heart's content. I know a lot of you guys are currently not able to play because of bugs, and that's totally fine. But in my opinion, if you want a more enjoyable experience and a more calm and forgiving experience, especially while you're trying to upgrade characters in the early game so that you can have more fun with them in things like Tower of Adversity or the elusive realms later, personally, I think that having healers or investing in a healer like Verena or Baiji at the start of the game can be very valuable. And otherwise, if you want to use someone like Yang Yang alongside on something like the Originite series, can also be very helpful, assuming that you want to heal in some way, shape, or form. Although again, this is pretty much for a peace of mind point of view, although I haven't seen nearly anyone play 24/7 without needing a healer, because let's be honest guys, are you really going to take the time to pick flowers or whatever it is to synthesize a nutrient block to heal yourself that also has a cooldown? Feels kind of bad, and in my opinion, I think that investing instead in a healer will yield you so much more value. And therefore, although it may be funny to laugh at a YouTuber or a content creator by just saying, just dodge, I promise you, this is not a game that you can spend 24/7 dodging in, and I highly recommend that you invest in a healer, especially if you're someone that's playing the game more casually or free to play. That's going to be it for this video though, guys. I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. At the end of it all though, I hope you guys learned something from the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like, comment, turn on the notification bell. If you guys want to see more content like this or anything else, feel free to comment. Feel free to let me know in the comment section below. But otherwise, guys, that's going to be it. Thanks again for watching. Make sure to check out the rest of my content. Hope you guys enjoy. Again, I will see you on the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.